I don't think you're the right fit for the kind of work we're doing here, so I've requested to have you transferred.
Captain, but...
This conversation's over. You're dismissed.
Right, but...
This is the end of the conversation.
Captain, if I could...
You can't.
Right, but I have this as
The conversation's over. That's the end.
Well, technically, the conversation is not over because I could keep talking, and then the conversation is
I don't know how you made it this far in your career behaving like this. This is why I ended the conversation. I'm having you transferred. End of conversation.
It would be rude and irresponsible to end a conversation.
The conversation's over.
But...
Edward.
Remember earlier I said...
Larkin.
I feel violated because I tried doing something for you guys. I tried reviewing season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, and my God, was it a mistake. If I were to say that the writing is bad, I would actually make bad look good. The writing is beyond abysmal. I mean, look for yourself.
To sever your mother from her space-time requires the energy equivalent of a supernova.
The dark matter particles.
We may be able to modify a transporter enhancer with dark matter.
Yes, to pierce the time stream long enough to lock on Dr. Burnham and beam her into our space-time. I like science.
He likes science. Of course he does. And by the way, this is not like the worst of it. There's more.
This is the power of math, people! Come on!
You are correct, Ensign.
I wish I could talk to the writer because I would want to ask him how many. How many blows to the head do you need to take in order to write something like this? It is beyond abysmal. And by the way, I went into it with an open mind. I went into it expecting it to be mediocre, thinking that this is not Star Trek. I'll treat it as a brand new IP that is completely unrelated to the Star Trek that I grew up with. And still it managed to disappoint. At least the season 1 had somewhat of an interesting story. Yeah, a lot of people will disagree, but I personally enjoyed the idea of the dark Star Trek universe. And while the writing was bad, it wasn't atrocious. I mean, not this level of atrocious, at least. And then you find out that they might have plagiarized the story. They're being sued for it. Now, the lawsuit hasn't come to a conclusion as far as I know. So... It's all up in the air. Maybe they didn't copy it, but given the drop, the massive drop in writing from season 1 to season 2, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. The only way I can interpret it is that this show is set up to promote Picard. Because while Picard is bad, it's not this bad. No, trust me. Okay, trust me. If you don't trust me and you're saying, no, V, you don't understand Picard, watch season 2 of Discovery. Watch season 2 of Discovery, and after you're forced to sit there and stand through this madness, go and watch Picard, and you'll be like, well, you know, this is bad, but my God, it's not Discovery. At least it's not that. I mean, maybe this is what they're trying to do here, because I genuinely, do not understand how they could have hired these writers. Now, I constantly say this to people, and I have these discussions on the forums with imbeciles. I do not know how else to call them at this point. Because if in 2020 you haven't noticed this pattern by now, and in fact you're arguing with people that are pointing out this pattern, it's not the people that are pointing out that's the problem, it's you're an imbecile. Okay, congratulations. If you take this algorithm, this pattern, and put it into a computer, the computer will give you the results that I'm talking to you right now. Whenever you see a video game or a movie where they either have far left dog whistles or a person associated with the production of said video game and movie comes out and gives some far left dog whistles, the product is going to be bad. So let me give you an example. Let's say someone associated with it says that they did their best in order to desexualize women, that they did their best in order to cover up the women. Or you have someone that talks about diversity and representation. Or you have someone that talks about how many LGBT characters they have there. Or whatever, okay? The movie or the video game is going to be bad. And here the imbecile comes up and tells me, so what if the show is about a black woman with a male name, Michael Burnham? So what if the show is about feminism? What is wrong with feminism? What is wrong with a woman having a male name? And I will explain this one more time, and hopefully even the imbeciles would get it. The problem isn't these dog whistles. You can have a good show with a black woman as a lead that has a male name. But the problem is that when you have these far leftists associated with the production of an IP, they will do what they always do when they invade a space. These people are raging bigots. They cannot accept any individual that thinks differently than them. As such, they will do their utmost best in order to get anyone that doesn't agree with their ideology fired. So when you have a writer that is really good, a writer that can actually write some decent things, if he is not a far leftist and he doesn't agree 100% with the people that are in charge of the project, he is not going to be promoted and he is going to be fired. So they fire all of the talent that they have because they do not promote, they do not hire, and they do not keep people based on their ability to write, based on their ability to direct, based on their ability to act. They keep people based on their ability to be ideologically aligned. And when you hire people and you maintain a business based on people who think the same way you do, and you're risking pushing out the talent, you end up with a product like this. So to summarize, it's like a cancer. It's not the fact that they decided to make a show about feminism that's the problem. It's not the fact that they want to have LGBT representation that's the problem. These are the symptoms. It's like seeing a man who constantly turns pale, who loses weight all of a sudden. None of these things are going to kill you, but these signify that the person might have cancer. And that is what's going to kill you. It's the cancer. So whenever I see an IP or a show that constantly virtue signals with far leftist talking points, it tells me that the chance that they have fired all of their talent and all of the people that don't think like them is very high. And you can't make something good if you do not have talented people. So let's talk a little bit about what the problem is here. This is what happens in Marvel Comics if you happen to read them. I don't know why you would, but in case you happen to read them, you will always see that they create characters that they claim they're very smart. Take Ironheart, for example. She is the one that's supposed to replace Iron Man. And they constantly say that she is the smartest person on the planet, that she's an absolute genius. But she never acts smart. She never acts like a genius. Like, there are situations in her comic where she goes up against people like Dr. Doom, against other supervillains, and she always falls for small traps that any intelligent person would be able to avoid. So this is what they constantly do. They create a character that claims they're a scientist, claims they're really intelligent, but in reality, they do not act the way. However, everyone around them congratulates them, and it's like, oh, I love science. Oh, you're so great. Oh, yes, math. Woo! You know? And it's this character archetype, this trope, that I get to see flooding Marvel Comics, and now it's in Star Trek as well. And in Star Trek Picard, you know, the science chick that is socially awkward, but she is very smart. And she doesn't do anything smart. We're just told by other characters that she is the bestest ever. And it's like, okay, but can you show me something that she does which gets her to be the bestest ever, rather than just, you know, tell me that she's the best? And then it's the science. The science itself is a problem. I remember watching Star Trek when I grew up. I remember watching Stargate when I grew up. And I remember watching a lot of other sci-fi when I grew up. And the science there, you could tell that at least they spoke with a physicist. You could tell that at least they have a scientist on their writing team that is trying to advise them about how science works. And this is why I believe Star Trek actually managed to predict a couple of inventions that appeared in the future. Like, for example, iPads or wireless communication devices that at the time were inconceivable. But if you watch an episode of The Next Generation today, it doesn't look futuristic at all. It's quite shocking, because I'm watching the Next Generation again, and the only futuristic thing that they have are the spaceships, the teleporter, the replicators, and the holodeck. But the rest of the technology doesn't seem really that far-fetched. In fact, it seems quite retro. when you look at here now. But when I was a kid and I was looking at that, everything seemed far-fetched, everything seemed futuristic. And the reason is that they actually had people that were scientists on their team. I highly doubt that Discovery has scientists advising the writing board, because they come up with these absolute nonsense. It's like, oh yeah, let's shoot a wormhole through a planet and infest it with dark matter, and we can bombard it in the sun, and we can change the space continuum. It's like, what the hell? And not only that, but it's the self-insert that you can see from the writers congratulating themselves on the brain fart they just had. It's like, yes, I love science. Oh yeah, bah, fuck yeah. Like that, those are the writers that are speaking through the characters. And it reminds me of the type of millennials that go on Facebook and subscribe to I fucking love science in order to look at their scientifics. And the fact that they get references like Schrodinger's cat and they watch Big Bang Theory, they actually think that, yes, this is what science is about. But when they see an actual scientific paper, they don't even bother to read it. You know, I think this is like the crowd that Star Trek Discovery is trying to appeal to. But that's not it, because it gets worse, if you can believe it or not. Now, Star Trek was supposed to be the show about a bright future. It was one of the only sci-fi shows which showed a future where humanity is prospering, where everyone in the galaxy is trying to get together for accomplishing the common goals. And unfortunately, Star Trek Discovery is corporate hell.
I don't think you're the right fit for the kind of work we're doing here, so I've requested to have you transferred.
Captain, but...
This conversation's over. You're dismissed.
Right, but...
This is the end of the conversation.
Captain, if I could...
You can't.
Right, but I have this as
The conversation's over. That's the end.
Well, technically, the conversation is not over because I could keep talking, and then the conversation is
I don't know how you made it this far in your career behaving like this. This is why I ended the conversation. I'm having you transferred. End of conversation.
It would be rude and irresponsible to end a conversation.
The conversation's over.
But...
Edward.
Remember earlier I said...
Larkin.
So that's from a mini-series that takes place in the same universe. And it's supposed to be similar to how The Next Generation was, where it's just about people talking and people interacting with each other so that they can save money for the budget. But to me, this looks like the worst place to be in. This is like going to a multi-billion-dollar company and you're summoned by the HR lady who yesterday was talking about corporate loyalty and how we're all a family here at our company. And today she's treating you as a replaceable cog in a machine. You're basically like a resource. In fact, they even call you human resource. When you're broken, rather than trying to fix you and talking about that corporate family and that corporate loyalty, you need to be replaced. And she refuses to tell you what you actually did wrong, so you can at least try to improve on that. She fires you with a smile on her face and with a lot of corporate jargon and, just pouting and rolling her eyes when, obviously the person in front of her is being distressed that they're getting fired. No, instead she's pouting and literally rolling her eyes. It's like, can we speed this along? Because I got 5 or 6 other people I need to fire today. And it's again like Star Trek is supposed to be about the bright future. It's not supposed to be about corporate hell. Now, there is an episode in The Next Generation, and I don't want to show it because every time I show clips from The Next Generation, I get a copyright claim. But it's about Commander Riker going to Picard and wanting to transfer a Starfleet officer because he is incapable of performing his duties to the expected standard. And Picard refuses this transfer because he points out that if the guy actually managed to get on the ship, that he passed all of the required exams and tests in order to be on the ship. And that the correct action is to actually try to help the person improve or try to find a position that is suitable for him, because just by transferring him, you're passing the burden up to someone else. And compare this to Discovery, where even though the guy is incompetent, and by the way, he's a caricature. This is like the way they know how to make strong women, by making men look like absolute imbeciles. And I can make another episode dedicated just to that, so you guys can see what I mean. But the guy is incompetent. Don't get me wrong. Like the character that's getting transferred is, a disaster. But this is not what a bright future looks like. Picard would not transfer the guy. Picard would try to find out what the guy's problem is and try to work with him in order to transform him into a great officer, because he actually states that a good leader isn't a person that can just move people around, or when something doesn't work, you treat him like a piece of machinery that's broken and you throw it away. A good leader takes someone that is not talented and gives him talent. And that was like the essence of the Next Generation. And compared to the writing that you have today, which is utterly abysmal, makes me believe that the writers have never interacted with people in society. The writers are just in an echo chamber that they create themselves, because, as I mentioned, they're raging bigots, and anyone that doesn't think like them needs to be ostracized or pushed away. And they are very socially awkward. So they can't create charismatic characters. They can't create characters that have interesting things to say, because they're not charismatic and they're not interesting people. And they have been hired in that position not because of their writing abilities, but because of the ideological consistency that they seem to have with other far leftists. So that's my analysis and my in-depth review of Star Trek Discovery Season 2. Now, I don't know how long the show will last, because this is not just about ratings. It's also about selling toys. And honestly, this has the opposite effect. Like, it's not that it doesn't make me interested in purchasing a Discovery toy. But if someone were to give me a gift, if someone were to buy, I don't know, a Michael Burnham action figure and give it to me as a present, when I would open the box and I would see what's inside, I would scream in horror. I'd be like, get it away! Get it away! Why did you do this to me? Why did you buy me something like this? Like, that's literally the mindset that I have after watching Season 2. And honestly, I pray to Jesus. I found religion again. After being an atheist for so long, this is what got me to find religion. Because I now pray to the Lord that I will never be in a position to have to watch Star Trek Season 3 ever in my life again.